Welcome, everybody, to the Move IQ podcast. I've been away on the road filming location, and it's great to be back and great to be in my new set. I'm feeling very grown up. I hope you like it as much as I do. And it is a set. And today I'm going to be talking to Elaine Penhaul from Lemon and Lime Interiors about staging sets. I think this is very apt that I should have a new stage.
Absolutely. It's great.
Can we just let's kick off? What is home staging, and when does it happen? Who does it? How does it happen? What does it involve?
So home staging is really, it came from the States. The term came from the States. I think we would refer to it as getting property ready for sale in particular. In other words, doing anything a house needs to bring it to the market looking its absolute best in order to attract the best price for it as quickly as possible.
And do you tend to get called in at that moment when it's about to go onto the market?
It's interesting. Increasingly now, yes. When I started the business, the more common time, and it still happens, was when the second agent went in.
Okay.
And the presentation, sorting out the presentation, was the more palatable alternative than a price drop.
Yes. I've often felt, presentation is everything. First impressions are huge. Kirsty and I have a sort of an unwritten rule that people tend to make their decisions, whether it's the right house or the wrong house, within 10 seconds of arriving. So those first 10 seconds are absolutely vital. Arrive at the property. What does it look outside? Open the door, the hallway. You're almost done. 10 seconds is almost up by the time you haven't even got to the kitchen.
No. And I think that these days, and particularly since COVID and the dramatic increase of the use of video and virtual tours and so on, in putting properties onto the portals, then actually those first 10 seconds when somebody arrives at a property is confirmation of what they already had believed from the photos and all the online collateral that's there these days.
So would you say on that topic that actually your first viewing is online? Your first viewing is on the portal, and therefore the photographs and the staging of everything has to be absolutely bang on.
I think we use the property portals. People use property portals a little bit like they use dating apps. And basically they're scrolling down. They're often scrolling on their phone while they're watching telly or cooking dinner at the same time. And they're just swiping things that they look at and they think, no, and they go through. And in a buyer's market, as we've got right now, as we're filming, I think there's a lot more choice for buyers. And so if things don't jump out at them immediately, swipe.
I read some stats a while ago about the amount of time that you've got, and it's like about 3 seconds.
Tiny.
To attract someone.
Tiny.
That's I'll go and find some more.
Yeah.
Or that looks dark, I'll move on.
Yeah. And that's exactly right. And that's where we come in by making those properties really jump out on the portal so that somebody stops.
Yeah.
And that really is the first thing that we aim to do, to get them to stop long enough to look at more than the first couple of photos.
How do you do it then? What does it entail? Because there's a lot more than just decluttering.
Yeah, of course it is.
We talk about decluttering on the telly all the time.
Yeah, and decluttering is a very wide encompassing word. And it's a kind of a how long's a piece of string question. It depends what the property needs. So as a business, we deal with lived-in properties and empty properties. Empty properties are, relatively speaking, very straightforward, because what we'll do in an empty property is go in and furnish it. Yeah. We make sure that we're having a good conversation with the estate agent in the first instance, to discover who the target buyer is. And then we're aligning what we're putting into the property with the trends. So we're acknowledging current trends so that we're appealing to young professionals, for example, downsizers, whoever the buyer's going to be. And then we fill it with furniture and
to suit that market.
Yes, to suit that market.
Let's just flesh that out a little bit. So young professionals, probably someone's going to be working from home, so there's going to be an office set up.
Yeah.
What else? What give me an other target market? Would you set a cot up for some? Something that might suit a young family?
Yeah, so for example, in a 3-bed home where the third bedroom is really relatively quite small, but it might be the upsize for a young couple who are just about to start a family. And in that instance, then setting up the smallest bedroom as a nursery is super appealing.
And for downsizers, how would you cope with that?
Downsize are really interesting, and I feel very lucky because I kind of fall into that category myself. I am my client in that instance, and many of the younger designers, younger stagers will believe that downsizers are happy to have the traditional kind of bungalow with, nice furniture, but actually I think that market has gone. And I think now that generally people who are downsizing once the children have left home and become independent are now looking for something that they can lock up and leave. They can go traveling. They've perhaps always lived in a bigger house with furniture that you didn't really mind if the children climbed all over it or drew on the walls or, and all the things that go with having children. But actually now what we want is really very sleek, very, very much more contemporary interiors, things that we've never been able to have in bringing up a family. So I think that downsizing market is dramatically different now to what it was perhaps 10, 15, 20 years ago.
I guess the secret is enabling people to imagine themselves living in that space. And if it's staged correctly, they should be able to do that.
Yes, imagine themselves living in that space, but not just imagine, make them really fall in love. So again, going back to the dating app analogy, you don't want them to just think, well, it might be all right. You want them to absolutely fall in love. And that's about creating the interiors, putting furniture in where they can see the size of the place. So bedrooms are notorious for looking much smaller with no furniture in. Once you've got a king size bed in, suddenly he goes, oh wow, that's much bigger. But also creating those little vignettes. You might put a little a really comfortable chair with a book and a cup of coffee next to it. So people can imagine, or outdoor spaces that are so important. And indoor outdoor.
Laugh when you say book and a chair and a cup of coffee, because I do see that. And I do that. Well, wouldn't it be nice to sit there and read my book? Phil, you never sit down and read a book in your life.
Yes, but that's real life. We're not doing real life. We're doing imagine yourself.
I love it. It's great to think if I bought this house, I might have time to sit down and read a book.
It's the aspirational. We're creating the aspirational.
Great. You're selling it. You're selling the dream. And it is selling the dream and the lifestyle.
Yeah. My architect once said to me, Elaine, we could put a balcony on here. I'm going, when am I ever going to get time to sit on the balcony? But we are creating those aspirational interiors rather than what actually happens.
Well, let's face it. When people move home, they are usually moving to do something. They're moving for the next stage of life. They're moving up in the world. They're getting a bigger house or a bigger family or a bigger job or and so. Yeah. That stands to reason.
And I think that's what's so important. I very rarely talk about interiors in the business. What we talk about is people, because what we're dealing with is people. I was a business coach in a previous life. We're talking about their next stage of life, whether that's moving up, whether it's moving to something smaller so that they can travel, whether they're moving nearer to family, to have some help as they age, all kinds of reasons. We see lots of divorces, for example, where people are literally starting a completely different phase of their life. Yeah. And that's what's important about what we do.
Is it fair to say that a home or a room that's been staged well feels bigger?
In general, that's absolutely true. It's most true of bedrooms. People will imagine that a bedroom is perhaps a single bedroom when in fact you can get a good sized double bed in once it's got furniture.
And I've always believed that agents struggle to impart a lot of this information to prospective clients because they're worried. They want the business. They don't want to upset the vendor, the client, by suggesting that their bedroom might be small or that their front door might not be the right colour or something. Is that true? And how
Yes.
should they get around it?
Yes, it's absolutely true. I think it comes from a number of things. I think agents are, as you say, afraid of losing the instruction, and so they don't want to say to somebody, "Wow, you can't sell it looking like this."
Yeah.
They can get around that by, if they've got somebody like us around, then it's simply a question of phoning and saying, could you call these clients and have a conversation? All they're needing to do is to ask permission of the client.
So you're the third party. You're not going to.
Yeah, we're an independent third party. And as long as the agents are using a staging company or using us as a value add into their proposition, then actually, would you like a free consultation about how best to present your home to bring it to market, is actually a really valuable
100%.
thing.
Well, it's going back quite a few years. I made a series called Secret Agent for Channel 4, and I made a lot of them. It was a daytime show where I would go along and help people who had been struggling to sell their homes for a year or 2 years, and they hadn't figured out why. And yeah, the reasons were often very obvious. But I remember it was things that were too personalized, and smell was a big one. Smells of pets, smells of teenagers, tobacco, cooking. That was a really big one. And I take a lot of people into a lot of different houses, and they notice light and they notice smell really quickly.
Yeah. Yes. And smell is really one of the big things. I remember going to see a house, an agent had asked me to go out and see, and as the owner opened the door, the smell of cigarette smoke nearly knocked me backwards. And she said to me, in your opinion, why do you think this house isn't selling? And then you have to frame that conversation. Well, actually, your house reeks of smoke and it's not nobody wants to step across the threshold. Yeah. Never mind buy it.
It's the same with, teenagers just open the bedroom window, but pets, dogs, because you can't smell your own dog because you live in the space.
No. And having that conversation with owners about how to move out the dog crate or the pet beds, just take them out for, preferably for 24 hours before you have a viewing, really works, and opening all the windows and all the doors.
So let's expand on that topic a little bit, because it is hard for people in their own space, if they haven't got a professional stager coming in, to be objective about it, because it's their space, it's their treasures, it's their possessions, it's their colour scheme, it's their clutter, it's their pets, it's their teenagers, and they love them all, and that's absolutely right and how it should be. But when it comes to the time to sell, you've got to be objective, and that's hard. I'd recommend that they get an honest friend in, to give them honest and true feedback.
Yeah. And I think an honest friend is a really good start. I say to people, go round your own house with a camera, take lots and lots of photos, and then put them onto as big a screen, so the television screen for preference, as big as you possibly can. And at the same time, pull up photos of things that you're really falling in love with that you might want to go and buy.
Okay.
And tell me what's going on. And people will begin on a bigger screen and on a flat screen, rather than standing in the space, begin to see certainly clutter, general living detritus.
Good advice. What's your take on things that are overly personalised? And I don't actually mean colour schemes and purple walls and things. What about too many family photos and too much of that?
I think family photos are good in small quantities because they give a feel of it being a home. What we're not trying to do, and I think the very early versions of staging often made quite clinical spaces, and we're not trying, particularly in an occupied home, we're really not trying to create a clinical space. We're trying to create a home, but the kind of the immaculate version of your home, the version that we wished we lived in rather than the reality. And so keeping a few photos around is good. The huge photos of the whole family on the wall as the central focal point, then generally I would advise removing. But 2 or 3 photos on a sideboard, I think are good.
Does that mean there is such a thing as overstaging? Could people take it too far?
Yeah, completely. Yeah, completely. And I think it's a very fine line between a well-staged property and a property that looks
Like a show.
false.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just kind of, even some of the show homes, there's a lot of what I would call see-through furniture around. It's the furniture that people put in to say, there's a piece of furniture here, but it's not the right furniture. It's not the right furniture for the house. It's not the right furniture for the buyer.
I've often said that your home is your most valuable asset, the most valuable thing you own. And so when it comes to marketing it, you've got to put the effort in, and it's worthwhile.
Yeah, it blows me away. It absolutely blows me away. And the approach from estate agents blows me away as well. If you think about the marketing budget that goes on a can of beans, for example, and in the supermarket, people who are stacking shelves are taught to face the beans outwards with the label so that people can see them and know exactly what they are and buy them. And, however much a can of beans is, it's pence compared to a house.
Yeah.
But when it comes to a house, estate agents actually don't believe in many cases that it's their job to tell people to tidy up or make the beds before the photographer comes or anything. Some now do send through checklists, which is great. Some give some advice, but actually they're really not yet at the stage of saying, right, okay, so we're now marketing your biggest capital asset.
Yeah.
We're going to get you the most money for it as we possibly can in the fastest possible time. We've really got to sort things out here. And this is where we're going to start.
I had a client once, he was a bachelor, and he was a friend of mine. So I was able to be very honest. He lived he had a flat in Notting Hill that I'd found him years before. He came back to me and said, Phil, I need to move. Can you help me sell it? The agents came round and said it was worth 585. But he was a bachelor, he travelled, he worked very hard, and he never really sort of settled into it. So I, with the help of a home stager, dressed it and we made it look pretty.
Yeah.
We got him 625. That's tens of thousands of pounds.
Yeah, which compared to the cost of staging it.
Cost of staging was like 500 quid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and we've got a lot of stories of that, and speed of sale as well. We've done houses that have been on the market for years, have changed agents half a dozen times in that time, but they've been empty, and we've gone in, staged them, and within 24 hours they've got an asking price offer on the table. Yeah, literally. We did a big one in the Cotswolds. It was best part of 3 million. Yeah. And the people that bought it had actually seen it with no furniture in, dismissed it off their list. The agent had brought them back 18 months later because they still hadn't found anything. They walked in with it staged, fell in love with it, bought the house, bought most of the staging, got us to do interior design for them.
That's a great story. That's a great story. You furnished the whole thing?
Yeah, we furnish. I mean,
And you rent the furniture?
Yes. So our niche really in the market is very nice country houses, whether they're new or whether they're period houses, whether they're lived in. Absolutely, with pleasure.
Do you get called in when it's not going for sale, but somebody just wants it to sort of sharpen up a little bit?
Yeah, sometimes as core business, generally we don't do that. We'll do it as I've got a couple going on at the moment that we are doing for people that we've worked for when we've staged theirs to sell and they've perhaps moved and they now want us to help. Other times we'll refer some of those on to, if it's a big project, to a more specialist interior designer. We don't see ourselves really as interior designers. We see ourselves as property marketing.
Got it. But every £100 you spend could be a couple of £1,000 on the sale price.
Yeah. So
Elaine's great stuff. I'm excited for you. I mean, I'm actually excited for the industry because if more people are staging their homes better, it will improve speed of sale as well as price.
Yeah.
Just to finish off with, if somebody's listening or watching and then they're not getting professional help, 3 things that they should absolutely be thinking of.
So if they're not getting professional help, I think first of all, do the version that we've talked about, getting an honest friend, taking photos themselves and really going through what needs doing. If they can afford whatever it is, £1.99, £4.99, whatever it is on Kindle, download my first book, Sell High, Sell Fast, which basically tells them what to do and how to do it. And I think that particularly making the beds, you see so many properties on Rightmove with the beds not made. Yeah, I guarantee if you trawl through 10 properties on Rightmove, you will find one or more with the beds unmade.
That's poor. If somebody's selling a standard 4-bed family house, they're living in it, but they want to make some effort to market it better and state it. They bring you in. What happens to their furniture? How does that all? There's a family living, going to school, working, etc.
Yeah, normal family life. So an occupied property like that, the first thing is that we would go and walk around it with them, chat through what needs doing in each room, and then they have the option of doing that themselves or as then coming in to offer help with that. And that might be decluttering, it may be a little bit of decorating, it may be some repair work. Often wardrobe doors or kitchen doors are misaligned and just, kind of falling off. Maybe that the fascias or the windows outside need some painting, some touching up. So we would advise on all of those things first of all, and then they have the choice. If at that point,
either they do it,
and then either they do it or we do it, and we always do that advice for nothing, because what we're trying to do is to build the long-term relationships with the estate agents. So, and they love it if we give advice for nothing, because they get a better house anyway if people do it themselves. If people then need help to do that, as far as possible, we leave their furniture, their things absolutely where they are, because they're going to live with it. And, even if they get the sale really quickly, it could take quite a long time for that to complete. So we leave what we can there, but we'll then zhuzh up, really. So we'll put things in, or help them to put things in boxes. Some things, if they don't need them till after they've moved, then put them in storage, put them in garage, put them in a neighbour's garage. The things that they really need as day-to-day living, which aren't very pretty, don't need to be on show, then we'll say to them, we'll just go to Tesco and buy some big lidded boxes. And then when you've got viewings, shove all of those things into the lidded boxes, stick the lid on, put it in a cupboard, put it in the garage, put it in the boot of the car if you have to, get it away. And then we'll show them the things that they can actually leave on show. And for bathrooms, for example, we might say, right, we'll put all your bathroom stuff into this box, take out of the box your very nice toiletries, your brand new white towels and your plant, and put those out so that it looks like a hotel bathroom. And we'll teach them how to do that as well. The things that we bring into an occupied house generally tend to be new cushions, because cushions are horrible when people have been living with them. Maybe some artwork, for example, and just some accessories generally. Clear all the sides in the kitchen. Make sure you've just got out the nice coffee and and a recipe book or something. Just things that people go, oh yes, I'd cook that kind of food if I lived in this kitchen.
Yes. Well, I'd shop in that rather glamorous shop. Go on holiday there and use that boat.
Yeah, completely. So you might have a travel book open on a beautiful page on the coffee table, for example.
This is the kind of person who lives in this house. I love it.
Yeah, for sure. That's who you're going to be when you buy this house, because houses aren't about bricks and mortar, are they? They are about who you are in that house.
You are trying to sell a lifestyle often.
Yeah.
Do you, and I asked this because when I was filming my Secret Agent series, I found the biggest wins were the carpets and the paint. Actually, carpets are not expensive.
No.
Or they can be professionally cleaned. And repainting a room makes a significant difference.
Huge.
Or just the hallway.
Absolutely huge. So to take carpets first, carpets that have been lived in, especially if perhaps somebody has lived there in their older age and has then gone to live in a home or with family. Yeah. And the carpets very often have quite a strong smell. And the quickest way of sorting that house out is to get rid of the carpets. Yeah. Often underlay is okay. If you've got good underlay, it's often okay. So you're just putting carpet over the top. Very quick fix. And then it smells fresh of new carpet. We did a house once that was orange. And when I say it was orange, we walked in and the walls, the ceiling, the curtains, everything was this shade of orange. And I said to the family that lived there, so, what are you prepared to do? What's your budget? Which would be my normal starting point. They said, everything's negotiable, except we're not going to paint it. And so I said to them, right, it's not even worth putting the kettle on. Call me when you're ready to paint it, because literally the whole house. Fortunately, they were building a boat in the shed outside, and as the boat progressed, they got a bit more anxious about the sale of the house. So we did go back and paint it in a kind of a warm white, and it sold. But
yes, magnolia or white or where,
oh
where'd
God,
you
not
go
magnolia.
No.
Magnolia is
That's old.
Magnolia these days is a little bit like my grandmother ran a pub when we were kids, and and it reminds me of the walls. But there are plenty of warm whites. We did a house actually that was painted in a very fashionable at the time Farrow and Ball kind of grey, just very light grey. No, it was lighter than Elephant's Breath, and it was but it was north facing, and they couldn't understand why they couldn't get a sale on this house. But of course, in a slightly grey, a slightly grey white in a north facing house, it was really depressing. And the only thing we did in that house was painted a warmer white to acknowledge the light or the poor light coming in. And the estate agent phoned me a week after we'd painted it and said, Elaine, I feel like I live in that house. We've done so many viewings. And they got the sale with competing offers.
With competing offers?
Yeah. So getting the right white. So it's not even just white, it's getting the right white for the light that you've got coming in.
When we're filming location to taking people into a lot of different houses, it is the first thing people comment on. It's either, if it's light, they'll say it, oh, it's lovely light. And if it's dark, they'll say it, what's with dog in here? It's the first thing. Yeah.
And you can create an illusion of light, even in houses that aren't particularly light. So making sure that the windows are clean, making sure that the window dressings, so the blinds or the curtains, aren't covering the good proportion of the windows. We did a house where there was quite a long corridor as you went into the house that most of the rooms led off, and all the bulbs were kind of warm white, and it felt really dark because the house was kind of painted a magnolia-y kind of colour. We changed the light bulbs for a much colder, much cooler white, and suddenly, whoa, it was really bright in there and felt dramatically more livable. So
Elaine, really interesting talking to you. Thank you for coming into the podcast. And I hope you all enjoyed it, because I think there's an awful lot of information that you've managed to impart in a short space of time on a very, very relevant, important topic. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Pleasure.
My pleasure.
Thanks for listening and watching.